It's been said that the person who studies Tai Chi Chuan will gain the flexibility of a child, the strength of a lumberjack, and the wisdom of a sage. It's also been expressed as the person who studies Tai Chi Chuan will gain the pliability of a child, the vitality of a lumberjack, and the peace of mind of a sage. If you inspect these two expressions, one of them talks about the physicality of our human makeup, and the other one talks more about our character. You will gain the flexibility and the strength of a lumberjack, that's obviously physical, and wisdom, you could make a case for that being a mental exercise for the brain. As far as being pliable of a child, well, as you know, children are very vulnerable, so it's important that we teach them properly. Vitality of a lumberjack, well, they need that kind of spirit because it's hard work, so for them to get strong, they have to have a vital spirit. And as far as the peace of mind of a sage, well, that comes from the wisdom. So if you put the two expressions together, I think that expresses more of a totality between our human makeup, physically as well as our spiritual makeup. So I'd like to say it this way. The person who studies Tai Chi Chuan will gain the flexibility and pliability of a child, the strength and vitality of a lumberjack, and the wisdom of a sage will lead to peace of mind. Now the key word there is study. You don't just do Tai Chi Chuan. It's not just a physical exercise that's similar to any of those that are popular now. You don't follow a leader and just mimic what they're doing. You actually have to study this martial arts discipline. It involves not just doing the physical forms, but there's concentration, there's focus, visualization, imagining that there's an opponent coming towards you, cultivating your chi, which requires you to focus your thoughts in a particular direction. Shin, which stands for heart, is the thing that starts the whole process. Yi is mind or intention. So Shin Yi would be mind heart, or a combination of the spirit and the mind. Your Yi leads your Qi. So it's, again, not just a physical thing. We see a lot of people doing their forms, and they're doing more like a dance, and the discipline behind the martial arts applications is starting to fade away over time. My intention here is to preserve these oral traditions. If you've stumbled upon this channel, welcome. The motivation behind these series of Tai Chi instructions in the form was really inspired by my students. They've been asking me for years to create videos. I'm not a big advocate of trying to learn Tai Chi Chuan from DVDs, and any of you who have tried to do that can see how difficult it is. You're watching television, it's a two-dimensional media, and you can't tell which way the instructor's going. Are they going to the left, to the right? Sometimes that's easy enough to figure out, but if they go in angles and change directions, it's sometimes difficult to figure that out. So I'm not suggesting that you can learn from the video clips that I'm using here, because I'm using those for supplements to the class environment. When I teach something in the class, we only get together once, maybe twice a week, and it's amazing as to how quickly we forget things, especially when it comes to the details that Tai Chi Chuan demands of us. So the goal behind this particular series is to give a supplement to the class work. However, I think if you're looking to study closely, you might be able to figure it out, because I'm going to try to isolate each gesture in several different directions. If you look at Tai Chi forms out on YouTube, you're going to see a lot of them that are executing the entire 24 movements non-stop. Well, that makes it very difficult to study from, because in order to look at a specific gesture that you might be trying to perfect, you have to move the slider until you find the gesture, and then you have to wait for it to execute. And to try to go back and rewind it and catch it at the beginning and go over and over and over is a tedious process, to be sure. So my approach here is to take each gesture and isolate them one at a time. So if you want to work specifically on Snake Creeps Down or Wave Hands Like Clouds, you can go to the index below and pull out what it is that you specifically want to do. The other thing that I want to adhere to is the 10 important principles that Yang Chen Fu had written down a long time ago. He was third generation of the Yang family. He felt it was important to document these 10 principles. And the idea behind the 10 principles is to execute all of them every time that you're making your gesture. He felt that those were important principles to learn. So as I demonstrate a particular gesture, I'm going to pull in those 10 principles, but I'm going to do it on a gesture by gesture basis, it would be hard for me to explain the 10 principles and say, all right, now execute this single gesture with all 10 principles in mind. That's a very daunting task. Instead, some of the gestures lend themselves to a better visual presentation of a particular principle. So what I'll do is I'll build the principles over time using each gesture that exemplifies a particular principle. And then that way, as you learn them, you can kind of build your principles while learning the form at the same time. When all is said and done, you'll know and understand those 10 principles, and then your job is to try to execute with those 10 principles in every gesture that you perform. So I think that if you've stumbled here, I think you may have run into something that hopefully will be helpful to you. If you want to try to learn your Tai Chi Chuan from this particular approach, you're certainly welcome to give it a shot. If you're learning from another teacher, understand that we're going to be stylistically a little bit different. Most of the teachers are now doing the forms more as a dance as opposed to the actual discipline of Tai Chi Chuan as was intended when it was first designed many, many years ago. And that's good. It's good to move. But if you want the deeper essence of Tai Chi Chuan, then you really should study it. And that means getting some books, reading materials, practicing the forms, going with different teachers. Every one of them has something to offer. I certainly don't know everything, and I will never pretend to say so. I am still a student of Tai Chi Chuan. So that being said, welcome to this channel, and I wish you the best in your training. Let's get started.